Hey guys, I haven't been in front of my camera in a while, so this is exciting. I apologize for my haphazardly messy, weird appearance. I thought I was going to wait and not film face videos today. I've been filming all day, so my voice is a little tired. So I apologize. I may have to put a cough drop in my mouth. I'm feeling pretty good right now. I am kind of sick. So this was all gonna be one video, but then I realized that picking out my best and worst books from the year was kind of really hard. So that's what we're gonna do today. So you'll see me in this exact same outfit with this exact same mess of a hair, but we're gonna do it. My 64 gig card was causing my camera not to work. Just that one card. The other cards are fine, so I am very limited on memory space right now. Before I actually start with the list of books, I do want to say that these are in no particular order, just to make it easier on me so I don't have to specifically decide which ones I think were the absolute worst and the absolute best. By no means do I mean that I hate all of these books. Some of them I think are okay. I just think they were the worst from what I read this year in comparison to the other books that I read. Alright, so the first book that I need to mention I don't have a physical copy of because I listened to it via audiobook, and this is The Rise of the Isle of the Lost. This, I believe, is the third book in the Descendants series. The series correlates with both the books and the movies, and it goes back and forth. So there's a book and then there's a movie, and then there's a book and then there's a movie. So it goes back and forth between them, which is really interesting and really kind of cool. But I felt that The Rise of the Isle of the Lost in particular was a bit of a letdown for me. Nothing about what had happened in the previous book was mentioned really or significant. It was like that the entire set of events that happened in the previous book did nothing for the plot of the overall grand scheme of things. I feel like the whole concept is great, but I feel like the execution is not so great. Alright, so the next book that I'm going to talk about is Half-Lives by Sarah Grant. This book is I think it's a sci-fi or I'm gonna go with sci-fi. It's weird. It's weird. It's like sci-fi and dystopian mixed into one. This book had a really interesting premise, but I had a few issues with it. I liked the concept of it goes back and forth between a future time and a modern time. And in the modern time, some sort of disease is released. Very few people survive it. It kills almost everyone in the whole world. But this girl, she knows about it. Her parents give her some money and they send her to this top secret bunker that they somehow know about. They both work closely with the government and they're both in science somehow, and they're like really smart people. And so she ends up in this bunker, and she also ends up bringing with her 3, I think, other people. And they end up in this bunker together, and it goes back and forth between them. And then in the future, there's like this, it's a cult basically, and they worship this mountain, and it happens to be the same mountain where the bunker that the girl was in, and it's really confusing to try to explain. The premise of the book is not bad. I like the idea of it, but I had quite a few issues with some of the characters, some of the way that things happened. I felt like it was kind of almost a pointless, like when I got to the end of it, I was like, why did I read this? What was the point of all of it? Like, you go through all of this stuff that happens, you lose so many characters, and then it's like this empty void after you read it. You're like, but what was the point? What did we learn from all of this? It was very confusing, but I wish that there was a little bit more explanation as to why. And I also didn't like the dystopian sections too much, like the cult sections. In some ways, they were very confusing. Some parts of it were okay. I don't know. I was very conflicted by this book, and that's why it made this list, because overall, it just, didn't do it for me. It had this great concept and this great opportunity. So I tend to have a lot of issues with dystopian books as it is, but all in all, for those two books, I rated them, I believe, both a 3 out of 5 stars. So it's not like I rated them like really super low or anything. They just weren't like, oh my gosh. Alright, so the next book that I read was The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I have very mixed feelings about this book. When I first read it, my initial thoughts were like, okay on it. But then I looked back on it and I was like, I really didn't like it. So I'm kind of on the middle of the road for this as well. Part of it is that I did read it all in one day, and that is a lot of pages to read in one day. This was another booktubeathon read. It was read a hyped book. I do think that regardless of if I go back, reread this and continue, I do think I want to continue with the series possibly. But maybe. We'll see. I don't know. But either way, I do think that part of it was the speed that I read it at. So if I do go back and reread it, then I may like it better than I initially did, because I was reading this at 4 in the morning. And that's when I finished reading this book, was at 4 a.m. So, yeah. So it could, like I said, have been because of when I read it. It may have been one of those things that I needed a little bit more time to read. However, I did find that there are a lot of things that I didn't like. A lot of my main issue with books like The Fifth Wave is just the fact that they make everything so darn depressing. And like, I understand why. It's because the fact that is a potential possibility in the world. In dystopian and like apocalyptic types of things, I understand why they are the way they are, but I also feel like I do still think that it is overrated. Regardless, I do personally think that. I'm not saying it's horrible. I need to give it a second chance to decide if I think it's horrible or not. But I do think it's overrated. I'm afraid of the second book because it's tiny, and that concerns me. It's also a 3 out of 5 stars. Alrighty, so the next book that I have to talk about here is The Lightkeeper's Daughter by Colleen Coble. This book, I was gonna do a review, but then I kind of gave up on the concept. It's about Addie Sullivan, who lives a quiet life in a Northern California lighthouse. She mourns the death of her father and endures her mother's bitterness until the night a storm brings an injured stranger and a dark secret. This man insists she is not who she thinks she is, but rather Julie Eaton, the child long lost and feared dead by her wealthy family. Seizing this chance to be reunited with the Eatons, Addie leaves her lighthouse home but decides to keep her true identity a secret until they can unravel the mystery. This book is basically a compilation of some of the worst and most disgusting book tropes. Honestly, I can't even. I rated this book a 1 out of 5 stars, and if I could have put a 0, totally would have put a 0. Alright, so this is an honorable mention type of book. This one I was going to read over the holidays because it is a holiday themed book. I just couldn't continue. A White Christmas Pie. This book is about Will Henderson, who was abandoned by his father 16 years ago and left in the care of an Amish couple. Has joined the Amish church and is about to marry Karen Yoder. But as Will contemplates his marriage and potential fatherhood, he wonders if he will eventually destroy his family as his father did. Karen can't break through the barrier her fiancé has suddenly constructed around his heart. When she seeks the advice of an old boyfriend, Will begins to see green. Well, duh, you're seeking the advice of an old boyfriend, you idiot. I didn't even get that far. Is there a chance there won't be a December wedding after all? Riddled with guilt and shame over abandoning his son, Frank Henderson sinks into depression as he begins to search for Will. He wonders if there is anything he can do to make it right. You search for him 16 years later after abandoning him. Not like putting him up for adoption. Like, no, he abandoned the kid. Just got up and left one day. Oh my gosh, I can't. When Will's life is threatened The strength of blood ties is put to the test. Can Will find it in his heart to forgive his father and marry the woman he loves? Can an old recipe for white Christmas pie contain the truth that sets him free? Seeking advice from an old boyfriend, who does that? Why wouldn't you go to somebody else? Why is that the first person you seek advice from? Like, I get it to an extent. Yes, you can be friends with your past people you were previously in a relationship with, but why would that be your initial thought? What about best friends? What about family? But anyways, so like I start reading this. The writing style is just very juvenile. A lot of the things just wasn't natural. His thoughts, it just didn't flow. Not how conversation works. The worst thing that I got so sick of so fast. Like the first time I saw it, I was like, oh no. Was the use of jaw. J-A-H. Jaw. Oh my gosh, was it tacky? Oh, too much. I read the first chapter and I flipped over and I saw, like, as I was like scanning down, I saw jaw again. Like, it was used immediately on the next page and I was like, yeah, no, I'm done. And then I closed the book because I was so sick of it. Alright guys, so those were the worst books that I read in 2017. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give me a comment down below telling me what your worst read of 2017 was. Anyways, I will see you guys very soon with a new video. Peace out, Bear Scouts. About your worries and your stress. I need a bare necessity. That's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. About your worries and your stress.